Derek pays his credit card off every single month. Full balance, zero interest like clockwork for 9 years straight. Denise pays hers too, $175 a month, on time, never missed once. Same bank, same card, same 22% APR sitting quietly on both accounts. Derek's minimum obligation is basically decorative. Not because she keeps spending more. Because $175 a month on a card like hers barely wins a fight against the interest, let alone the principal underneath it. My name is Horizon, and today we're talking about the habit that doesn't feel like a mistake while you're doing it, because minimum payments are engineered to feel responsible. That's the whole trick. And by the end of this, you're going to look at your own card differently. Here's the strange part. If you ask Denise, she'll tell you she's being smart. She's not maxing out. She's not late. She checks a box every single month that says paid. On paper, she looks financially fine. But paper is lying to her the same way it lied to us in the retirement numbers. The average hides the real story, and the minimum payment hides the real cost. So let's answer the actual question. What is the minimum payment habit actually doing to your future, and why does it take years to notice? The answer starts with a number buried in a formula almost nobody reads. Most credit cards calculate your minimum payment as roughly 1 to 3% of your balance, or a flat floor like $25. It's not designed to pay off your debt. It was never designed to. It's designed to keep the account open, keep interest accruing, keep you exactly one payment away from calling yourself responsible. Back in the 2000s, this got so extreme that Congress actually stepped in. The Card Act of 2009 forced issuers to print a warning on every statement. Pay only the minimum, and here's how many years it'll take you, and here's how much extra you'll pay in interest. They had to legislate that warning onto paper because left alone, the math was quietly devastating enough that regulators decided people deserve to see it in black and white. And once you see it, it's genuinely hard to unsee. Take Denise's card. $4,800 balance, 22% APR, minimum payment starts around 2% of the balance. If she pays only the minimum every month forever, that balance doesn't clear in a year, or 2, or 3. It stretches past 15 years. 15 years on a balance that's smaller than a used car. And the interest she pays over that stretch, not the amount she borrowed, just the fee for borrowing it slowly, comes out higher than the original balance itself. She will hand the bank more money in interest than she ever actually spent on That's not a rounding error. That's buying the same purchase twice. Here's why the minimum payment is so quietly dangerous compared to every other kind of debt. It shrinks. As your balance goes down even slightly, the required minimum goes down with it, which means the payment that felt manageable at $4,800 gets even smaller at $4,200 and smaller again at $3,900. It feels like progress. It is the opposite of progress. A shrinking minimum payment on a balance charging 20% plus interest is a treadmill that quietly slows down, so you never build enough momentum to actually get anywhere. Ray's pension check never did this to him. Nobody's mortgage payment does this. Almost no other debt in your financial life is engineered to feel easier exactly when it's failing you the most. So let's break down the 3 mechanisms actually eating Denise's future. The first is compounding working against you instead of for you. Credit card interest is that exact same force, just pointed at your throat. Most cards compound daily. That means the interest charged yesterday gets added to your balance, and today's interest gets calculated on that new, slightly bigger number. It's a snowball, except it's rolling downhill toward you. A $5,000 balance sitting at 22% isn't just costing you $1,100 a year in a simple sense. Because of daily compounding, the real cost creeps higher than the sticker rate suggests. Quietly, in the background, the same way that 1% investment fee ate a quarter of somebody's retirement, the second mechanism is what actually happens to the minimum payment itself. Card issuers apply your payment to the highest interest portion of your balance first, which sounds like it should help you. And legally, thanks to the Card Act, on balances above the minimum it actually does now. But the minimum payment itself is calibrated so tightly around the interest that's already accrued that only a sliver of it ever touches the actual amount you borrowed. Picture pouring a glass of water into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. Some of what you pour in stays. Most of it just replaces what leaked out while you were pouring. Denise's $175 mostly refills the hole. A small remainder chips at the actual balance. That's why 6 years in, she's paid the bank thousands of dollars, and the number on her statement has barely moved. The third mechanism is the one nobody talks about because it's not a number, it's a habit. Psychologists who study debt call it payment decoupling. The minimum payment is so disconnected from your actual purchases that your brain stops associating them. You don't feel the $60 dinner or the $40 impulse buy from 4 months ago. You just feel the flat, familiar $175 that shows up every month like a subscription. It stops registering as debt and starts registering as a bill, the same emotional category as your phone plan or your Netflix account. And bills, unlike debt, don't trigger urgency. Nobody panics about a bill. People panic about debt. The minimum payment's entire psychological function is converting the second feeling into the first one, and that conversion is worth an enormous amount of money to whoever's collecting the interest. And there's a fourth thing sitting on top of all this that doesn't even look like a cost: your credit score. Carrying a balance and paying only minimums keeps your credit utilization, the percentage of your available credit you're actually using, elevated month after month. High utilization quietly drags your score down even when every payment lands on time. A lower score means a higher rate on your next car loan, a higher deposit on an apartment, sometimes even a higher insurance premium, depending on where you live. So the minimum payment habit doesn't just cost interest on the card itself. It taxes nearly every other loan you'll take out while you're in it. The exact same way looking financially stretched quietly taxes people trying to borrow their way out of a bad month. Now, a fair question. Why doesn't this feel as urgent as it actually is? Because unlike a market crash, there's no headline day when a credit card balance implodes. It's not dramatic. It's just $175, then $170, then $172, forever in the background next to your rent and your Spotify subscription, never loud enough to demand attention. A crash makes the news. A minimum payment just quietly erodes you in total silence. Here's the part where I have to be fair, though, because not everyone in this position is the same. If you're carrying a balance because of one hard year, a medical bill, a layoff, a genuine emergency, that is not a moral failing, and no amount of just budget better content fixes an emergency that already happened. That's a different problem than lifestyle spending, and it deserves a different solution. But if you're carrying a balance because the minimum payment made the debt invisible enough to keep spending around it, that's the exact trap this video is about. And it is fixable starting today, not eventually. Because, like the retirement problem, the good news here is that you control more of this than the statement lets on. The first lever is understanding the real math of your specific card. Most people carrying a balance have genuinely never run the number. Find your APR and your balance, and look at what happens if you pay even $50 more than the minimum every month. On Denise's $4,800 balance, going from $175 to $225 a month doesn't just chip a little off that 15-year timeline. It can cut it by more than half and slash the total interest by thousands. The math rewards even modest extra payments disproportionately, because every dollar above the minimum goes straight at principal. It's the single most underused lever in personal finance, and it costs nothing but the $50 you were probably about to spend on something you won't remember by next month. The second lever is the balance transfer, and it's the closest thing to a legal cheat code in this entire conversation. Plenty of cards offer a 0% introductory APR on transferred balances for 12 to 21 months. Move Denise's $4,800 onto one of those, and suddenly every dollar she pays goes entirely at principal, because there's no interest bucket to refill. There's usually a transfer fee, typically 3 to 5%, but even after that fee, the total savings versus the catch, and it's a real one, is that this only works if you stop using the old card once it's empty. Moving the balance without changing the underlying spending habit just gives you two cards to owe money on instead of one. The third lever is the debt avalanche, which is unglamorous and extremely effective. List every debt by interest rate, not by size. Pay the legal minimum on everything except the highest rate card, and throw every spare dollar at that one until it's gone. Then roll that entire payment onto the next highest rate. It's mathematically the fastest, cheapest route out, even though it's less emotionally satisfying than knocking out your smallest balance first. If the psychological win of an early victory matters more to you than the math, and for some people it genuinely does, because motivation is also a resource. The debt snowball, smallest balance first, is a legitimate alternative. The point isn't which method wins a spreadsheet contest. It's that either one beats minimum payments by an order of magnitude. The fourth lever is automating an amount above the minimum. The same way Ray's generation never had to think about their pension, and the same way the smartest 401k savers automate contributions, so their worst instincts never touch the wheel. Set the payment to something above the minimum by default, so the decision only has to be made once instead of every single month under the gravitational pull of, I'll just pay the minimum this time, just this once. Once, twice, and 3 years later, just this once is the whole strategy. And the last lever is the one that actually addresses Denise's real situation, not just the math. Talk to the issuer. Card companies have hardship programs, temporarily reduced APRs, structured payment plans that they don't advertise, because it's not in their interest for you to ask. But a 5-minute phone call, especially if you've been a reliable customer, can knock several points off your rate or restructure the payment into something that actually moves the balance instead of just orbiting it. Nobody tells you this option exists because silence is more profitable than disclosure. It cost Denise nothing to ask, and it cost her 6 years of not knowing to never ask. Here's the twist that actually matters, the same twist that showed up with Ray and Kara. Denise isn't undisciplined. She's been disciplined about the wrong number. She's optimized for never missing a payment, when the thing that actually needed optimizing was checking whether the payment was designed to help her. The minimum payment isn't a suggestion from a neutral referee. It's a number calculated by the party that profits every month it stays small. Once you see that, the whole habit looks different, not like responsibility, but like a fee you've been volunteering to pay. Derek isn't smarter than Denise. And he isn't more disciplined either. He just accidentally landed on the one rule that makes all of this irrelevant. Pay the statement in full every time. So the interest calculation never has anything to bite into. That's the entire difference between a card that costs you nothing and a card that costs you the card. Not the bank. Not even the interest rate, really. Just whether the balance survives to see a second month. So if you're sitting on a balance right now, here's the actual homework. Not a vague budget better, but a specific action. Pull up your statement, find the real APR, and calculate what one extra $50 payment does to your payoff date. Then decide whether a balance transfer buys you an interest-free runway to actually close the gap. That's it. That's the whole intervention. It's boring, it's unglamorous, and it works. Exactly the way ignoring the market on purpose works for Ray, not because it's exciting, but because it quietly removes you from a system that was counting on you not looking too closely.